Tonight, new political turmoil. Alabama and Tennessee are the latest states rushing to redraw congressional districts after a Supreme Court ruling that further weakened voting rights. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian has the latest. Nicole.
6 months out from the midterms, and the redistricting wars are intensifying for control of Congress after a recent Supreme Court ruling rolled back a key part of the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court's 6-3 decision to strike down Louisiana's congressional map hits right in the heart of Cleo Field's seat.
The district was created. First of all, Louisiana's minority population, black population, is over a third of the state.
The Democrat represents the 6th congressional district, which slinks from Shreveport to Baton Rouge. But the High Court ruled the newly drawn majority-minority district was an unconstitutional gerrymander since it was based on race. Congressman Troy Carter represents the other majority-minority district in New Orleans.
It can wipe out both of our seats. We can realistically end up having 6 congressional districts with no African American or Democratic representation.
Ahead of early voting this weekend, Louisiana officials suspended House primary elections slated for May 16th until the state can redraw its map.
I don't think that it's going to result in a loss of minority representation. And I think that we have to give the people a chance to draw their districts the way the people want to see them drawn.
Before the Supreme Court ruling, at least 7 states had already passed new congressional maps as part of mid-decade redistricting. Now, several southern states are using the High Court's decision to justify changes before the midterms, including Florida, Alabama, and Tennessee.
It's really not about, that little seat in Louisiana. It's about redistricting all over the nation. It's about the voting rights of people all over the nation.
While these new moves by southern states could potentially net more Republican seats, Democrats are vowing to fight back and are looking to other blue states that could possibly change their maps in the 2028 cycle. Jerika?
Nicole Killian, thank you so much.
Yeah. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. We got some examinationing. We got some examining to do. Let's put it like that. I'd have made up a whole new word, examinationing. We got some examining to do. We're here to look at this situation with Killer Mike that's going on. And it's tied to the latest Supreme Court decision, right? Louisiana versus Calais, right? Now, in this examination, we want to look at facts over feelings in this. We have to be facts over feelings. And let me say this. I am a fan of Killer Mike as a rapper, not as a political pundit. There are a lot of things that Killer Mike say that I agree with, and there are a lot of things that Killer Mike say that I disagree with. Probably more that I disagree with than agree. I have no qualms with him. I just disagree a lot with what he says. So I am politically, or as a talking head, not a fan of Killer Mike per se. But I am fair and I am about truth. And I am about making sure we understand what's going on and we don't act emotionally, right? We don't respond emotionally. So 3 main questions I want to make sure that we focus on. But now, before I get to the questions, I gotta do my housekeeping. Make sure you please hit that like button. Please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and share to the channel. Hit the hype button to make sure you support this channel. And other ways to support this channel is in the description. And you can get you some merchandise and everything. That's all in the description, right? So 3 questions that we're focusing on for this. 1, just make sure we focus on what the Supreme Court actually did. Let's focus on that. What did they actually do? 2, would a Kamala Harris presidency realistically have changed this outcome? Or even another Joe Biden presidency? Would a Democratic presidency, period, would have changed this outcome? And the 3rd question we're focusing on is, What strategic mistakes did Democrats make over the last 10 to 15 years that helped create the conditions for this ruling? Once again, what strategic mistakes did Democrats make over the last 10 to 15 years that helped create conditions for this ruling? So we have our questions that are going to help. Well, these questions are the foundation of what we're talking about as we move into the discussion about the Supreme Court and Killer Mike, because Killer Mike is being killed all over social media for his views. And a lot of people are saying that his views and his rhetoric led us to what we are now. And people like him, and especially someone with his stature and his influence, led us to where we are now. That is what we're challenging. That is what we're challenging. So, as the lady said, but of course, let's reiterate. The recent Supreme Court decision in Louisiana versus Calais, it sharply weakened Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, the section used for decades to challenge racial gerrymandering and voter dilution. Critics argue that the ruling makes it dramatically harder for Black communities to challenge maps that dilute the Black voting power. So supporters of the ruling argue that the Constitution should limit race-conscious districting. That damn word districting been killing me last couple of days. But supporters of the ruling argue that the Constitution should limit race-conscious districting. So, what are the key political impacts of this? Southern states, like we saw in the opening video, may now redraw districts in ways that reduce a Black majority representation democratically. Civil rights groups fear the loss of Black congressional seats and local political influence democratically. And legal scholars are calling this one of the biggest Voting Rights Act setbacks since the Shelby County versus Holder case in 2013. And the Shelby County versus Holder case, so let's read about that. The Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, Clarence Thomas, and Samuel Alito have made it their life's work to unravel the Voting Rights Act and undo the most effective civil rights legislation in American history. And this article came out. When did this come out? This is by The Guardian. I'm not sure exactly when this came out, but it was recently in a 6-3 party line decision in Calais versus Louisiana based on politics, not law. The U.S. Supreme Court effectively erased the remaining provisions of Section 2, yada, yada, yada. Hold on. Let me go back. Shelby County versus Holder. Hold on, let me Google that. Shelby County versus Holder. Quick summary of Shelby County. So Shelby County versus Holder in 2013 was a landmark Supreme Court case that gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965 by ruling Section 4B unconstitutional. This section contained the formula used to determine which states and jurisdictions required federal pre-clearance to change voting laws, effectively halting federal oversight. The 5-4 ruling argued the formula was outdated and violated equal state sovereignty. So key details is Shelby County, Alabama challenged the constitutionality of Section 5 and 4B of the Voting Rights Act. The ruling on June 25th, 2013, the Supreme Court ruled in a 5-4 decision that the coverage formula in Section 4B was unconstitutional because it was based on data from 40 years prior rather than current conditions. Immediate impact: the ruling effectively rendered Section 5, the pre-clearance mechanism, unenforceable until Congress passes a new formula allowing previously redistricted states to change voting laws without federal approval. Following the decision, many states implemented restrictive voting laws, including stricter voting ID requirements, reducing early voting, and voter roll purges. So this happened in 2013. So this was a blow to the Voting Rights Act in 2013. All right. So let's get back. Let me find my place. So, but that what that is showing is that the Republicans have been playing chess for a while. And what were the Democrats playing? I don't know, but it wasn't chess, right? To be able to end up in a situation like this. That's why we are making sure we examine what was happening over time with the Democrats for it to end up like this. All right, so the ruling did not, and so now we're back to the current Louisiana versus Clays. We're back to that. So the ruling did not happen overnight, right? That's why we looked at Shelby County versus Holder. So this ruling did not happen overnight. It was a culmination of decades of judicial strategy, elections, Senate battles, and Supreme Court appointments, right? This is deeper than Killer Mike. This is not on Killer Mike's shoulder. This is not on other shoulders of people who had similar rhetoric or the same rhetoric as Killer Mike, right? And so why are Black Democrats angry at Killer Mike? Now, a little information on his political positioning, right? He's always, or for a long time rather, he's positioned himself politically as independent. He supported progressive Blacks. And of course, we know he was 10 toes down with Bernie Sanders. He criticized establishment Democrats and often encouraged Black political independence rather than automatic loyalty to Democrats. That I agree with, that we agree with over here. Democrats, no, matter of fact, no party gets automatic loyalty from Black people, right? So a lot of the arguments now is that Killer Mike's criticism of Kamala Harris discouraged voter turnout. Or they're saying third-party protest vote rhetoric weakened the Democratic coalition unity. Our votes should only go blue, right? The 2024 election determined Supreme Court power. That's what a lot of people are thinking. A lot of people don't really know what's going on. Therefore, anti-Harris messaging indirectly contributed to the court remaining conservative, right? And that's all emotional. That's all emotional. We need nuance, right? We need nuance. Now, Killer Mike isn't the type of celebrity whose political influence or whose celebrity influence is enough to sway an election or sway enough votes in an election. Now, a celebrity, a powerful celebrity could do that, but not someone like Killer Mike, right? So these are arguments against blaming Killer Mike, right? They're saying, so these are arguments for Killer Mike, right? And they're saying that this Supreme Court decision, and like me and Pat and PC talked about on our Wednesday night breakdown, this happened before Kamala Harris. That's why I'm gonna play a clip from our live, and I asked a specific question for this reason. So once again, the Supreme Court conservatism, or all of the moves and everything that's going on with the Supreme Court, it predates the 2024 election, right? The conservative legal movement spent 40 plus years building judicial power. 40 plus years building judicial power. The Democrats already lost major judicial battles before Harris even ran. And like Pat said last night, the best chance they had was with Obama in his first term when he had the supermajority, and even Harris, her first time running, where when people didn't even remember she ran because she was like the first one out, right? There's also structural issues that matter more than one rapper's commentary. The Democratic Party been in turmoil. It's been a crashing plane for a while, right? And there are millions of factors that influence elections. It's not Killer Mike and rhetoric like Killer Mike. People are emotional. People are not being logical. So now, there are people with arguments for holding anti-Harris voices accountable. Voices like mine, voices like Killer Mike. And mine wasn't necessarily, our voice wasn't, well, I take that back. Our voice wasn't anti-Harris. It was anti-blind party allegiance, period. Anti-blind party allegiance, period, right? But some of these arguments that are anti-Harris voices, or they're holding, excuse me, these are the arguments that are holding or supposedly holding the anti-Harris voices accountable. They're saying that presidential elections determine Supreme Court appointments. Yes, they do. That's why Barack Obama should have done this job. And he didn't. Hell, I think one of the things that was said last night, not last night, but Wednesday night, was that even RGB, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she retired under Trump. She didn't retire under Obama, where he could have did another appointment, but it didn't happen. So asking ourselves, at what point does political independence become politically ineffective in a two-system party? At what point does political independence become politically ineffective in a two-system party? Now, we're talking about a strategic type question as well, because there are groups of people who are politically independent who play the game right. They're actually playing chess. Remember, we at the chessboard with Uno cards turned backwards. So now let's jump into, before we jump deep into Killer Mike, let's deal a little bit with this Kamala thing, right? So let me share my screen. So this is what we were saying about if Kamala would have won. And that's why you see it, would Kamala have stopped the voting rights decision? So I heard a lot of course, Black Democratic people, and the sentiment was, if Kamala would have won, this wouldn't have happened. Once again, they were saying, if Kamala would have won, this wouldn't have happened. Can y'all get some thoughts on that? Like, is that true or is that crazy?
Man, I almost blew up my soundboard with that.
I know.
Now, Juice.
I know.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pat.
Okay. So, if Kamala would have won, this would not have happened. That's the argument.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if Kamala would have won the first time she ran, like, hey, Nemus has got a point. If Kamala won, slavery would have never happened if Kamala won. You know what I'm saying? Gandhi would still be alive. If Kamala had won, her great ancestor. Anyways.
Oh, damn.
Look. This is the problem with the argument is it doesn't respect the process that got us here. This is not something that happened because Bush got elected. Or I'm sorry, even Bush got elected.
Because
this
Trump
is
got
not
elected.
Something that happened because Trump got elected last year. This is something that, if you want to make an argument for it, even though we know, like, you talk about the long game the Republicans have been playing since the 80s. This goes back to that. But at the very earliest, we can see the very clearest, objectively clear signs of this during the Obama election, the first term. When Trump got in after Obama's term for the first time in 2016, that man had a record amount of judges' seats to fill because Congress was not allowing any of the Obama appointees through. And judges, he either have to die, resign, or be impeached.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the three methods for getting rid of a judge. Obama had 2 Supreme Court justices that we know for a fact he was supposed to fill those seats. and Congress did not allow him to fill them. He put forth the name, and Congress was just like, we're not going to advise our consent or do our part because you're fixing to be out.
I heard a lot of so that was that piece. So, let's dive a bit deeper. Let's examine more, right? So would a President Kamala Harris have prevented this? Of course, Pat is saying no. I agree with the no, but let's examine the no, right? Remember, a Harris presidency alone, or even a Biden presidency, or a Democratic presidency alone would not automatically reverse the court. Why? Because we got to remember, Supreme Court power depends on a few things. And those things are Senate control, judicial vacancies, like Pat saying, Trump had three Supreme Court seats to fill. Congressional legislation has to be in place, filibuster rules, and timing. All those things matter when it comes to it. Now, you do have people who are saying that if Harris was in office, she could have appointed liberal federal judges, or she could have supported a new Voting Rights Act legislation. She could have backed Department of Justice voting rights lawsuits, potentially replaced aging liberal justices over time, shifted the long-term ideological balance of the court over time. But we're talking about things that could possibly happen, or things that may take time to happen, right? Now, a lot of the critics are saying, and a lot of the pushback, and it's rightfully so, that the Democrats had opportunities, especially during Obama administrations, to make things happen. The Democrats had opportunities in the past to lay the foundational blocks for a Supreme Court that favors them, but they didn't do it. They're being criticized for Democratic presidents avoiding aggressive court reform. And, Congress repeatedly failed to codify stronger protections when they had the chance. So a lot of the pushback or the emotional stances that are taken towards Killer Mike is not accurate. So let's say this. So let's get into this video. This is from Comedy Hype News.
Right Plus News, I'm John Abba.
And I'm talking directly to you, Killer Mike. Your ass is tagged. Shut the f*** up. Because wasn't this your in 2024? Oh no, this is your ass again. Killer Mike says Kamala's race won't be a key in 2024. It's progressives for me. You one of the reasons why we in this shit.
Killer Mike is currently being checked across the internet for a new video he will share on his social pages, calling for people to vote ahead of the upcoming midterm.
And see, rhetoric like that, young ladies, that emotional rhetoric like that, young ladies, is the reason why I set the foundation for this video like I did. And remember, our full breakdown of the vote of the Supreme Court decision on the Voting Rights Act is available here on this channel. And the link to that full breakdown is in the description of this video as well. But her emotional decision, and even this video did kind of inspire me. This video did inspire me to do this video to make sure we have a better understanding of what's going on. And I'm defending Killer Mike because in this case, the blowback is not fair, it's not warranted, it's emotional, it's ignorant, it's unintelligent, and it's not correct. So let's continue.
And to further spread awareness on a recent Voting Rights Act decision.
Hey, what's up? Onyx Impact, Black Male Initiative. This is Killer Mike, also known as Michael Render. 1965 Voters' Rights Act just got gutted. They gutted it. They literally eviscerated it, and it's now trying to make it easier, or allowed it to be easier, for states to redraw district lines to annex those most in need out. This is not just black people and African Americans. This is poor people. So based on where you are, the more poor people, they can chop you up. They can make sure you aren't voting on the behalf of the poor and the interest. They can make sure that It affects your schools. They can make sure it affects your jobs. They can make sure it affects every part of your life. So right now, you need to be putting pressure on our local politicians and local municipalities not to do this. We need to be putting pressure to make sure that those like you and like your neighbors still have the ability to exercise the full constitutional rights of voting, and it being effectively not eviscerated and us being taken back to Jim Crow. So we're going to start the largest voter initiative possible this fall. We're going to get people out to the polls. We're going to beat up those midterms, and going forward, we're going to do more than just march and protest. We're going to go to the polls. We're going to change the people who are in office. We're going to get those laws back changed in the favor of the people. This is Michael Render. Stay tuned. We're going to do something plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize big next.
Now, for anyone.
So this is the clip that set the internet on fire, especially black people all over the internet. I've seen videos being made left and right about Killer Mike telling him he don't know what he's talking about, shut up, all these things, yada, 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 for telling black people to make sure you get out and vote. Let me see. What percent of registered black voters vote? I've looked and I haven't found any definitive numbers to show the actual number of black voters who voted in the 2024 election, but information I have come across showed that there was a downtrend in the number of eligible voters that actually voted in the 2024 election. So, you know, we do have to get out and vote. So he's right. Like, we do have to get out and vote. If you talking about voting, you got to get out and actually do it. If you gonna talk about the political stuff, like, and we got to have some kind of strategies, because you don't necessarily always have to vote, but what strategies are we coming up with? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, but let's let it continue.
That has paid attention to some of Mike's past remarks, it could appear that he was one of the few black celebrities that would indirectly help Donald Trump secure another run in the White House. Many are calling out one of Mike's main stances of openly challenging Democratic nominee Kamala Harris by saying being black doesn't guarantee the vote. And the time he would meet up with Trump loyalist Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia in 2024. So for some to see Mike now change his tone a bit after the Voting Rights Act would no longer be upheld as Trump sits in the White House.
But I'm trying to figure out how his tone changed. He's always told people to vote, and he's always told people to, you know, don't just vote because somebody is black, or don't just vote because they're Democrat. So what's changing about his actual tone if he's still telling people to vote? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
They believe Mike is partly to blame. D.L. Hughley and several people on social media would let the rapper know that it's too late now to switch things up. Under Mike's post of the now infamous video on Threads, Hughley would go on to directly reply with, "Wow, the vibe shift," and would continue his stance by sharing another comment that read, "I see all these black people who are apoplectic about the Voter Rights Act, but you helped it happen. Miss me with that BS. Google don't forget, neither do I."
See, this is why Malcolm X told us not to listen to celebrities. And this goes for Killer Mike and DL, right? Because this issue is, well, the larger issue is long-term Democratic Party strategic failures. That's the long-term issue in this, or that's the main issue rather. The main issue is long-term Democratic Party strategic failures, right? A lot of political analysts argue that the Democrats underestimated the importance of the courts for decades. They say that the Republicans prioritized the they prioritized the judiciary for 40 years. The Republicans prioritized the judiciary for 40 years. Conservatives built organizations dedicated to reshaping the courts and identifying reliable constitutional conservatives. The Supreme Court ruling is the result of long-term institutional planning, not just one election. D.L. Hughley don't know what he's talking about. This is emotional.
Get the F out of here. Now, even though that message, unlike the previous one, was not directly addressed to Mike, many were going to assume that's who Hughley was calling out. As mentioned, several users would make sure that Mike was fully aware of being a part of the problem, despite now trying to appear that he's a part of the solution.
And I'm I'm talking directly to you, Killer Mike. Your ass is tagged. So Killer Mike decided to post this shit on Threads. Americans, we've got work to do beyond the polls this year, no matter what. Plan, plot, strategize, organize, mobilize. Shut the f***. Cause wasn't this your bitch ass in 2024?
Hey, Bonnet, I said it too. Don't just vote for Kamala because she black. I said it too, Bonnet. I said it too, Bonnet. And he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. The ignorance of you. The bonnet gives it away. I think she got the nose ring too. Gives it away. Ignorance. For you to really believe that the rhetoric of Killer Mike is the reason why, first of all, it's the reason Kamala lost. And that is a trickle-down effect to this Supreme Court decision. The ignorance. Listen to this. A lot of the political analysts say that the Democrats often focus more on presidential symbolism than judicial infrastructure, right? So they argue that the Democrats did not treat local and state elections seriously enough. Well, we know even from the voter side, they don't. They ignored redistricting battles. They ignored them. They failed to build long-term judicial pipelines. They relied too heavily on Democratic optimism and assumed changing demographics guaranteed future victories. On the flip side, the analysts argue that the conservatives, they focus intently on state legislatures. They focus intently on governors, Senate races, and judicial appointments. This ain't got nothing to do with Killer Mike and his rhetoric. This is Democratic long-term failure. Strategic failure from the Democrats over a 40-year period.
Oh no, this is your bitch ass again. Killer Mike says Kamala's race won't be a key in 2024. It's progressive for me.
Wasn't.
You one of the reasons why we in this.
It wasn't, stupid. It wasn't.
Shit. You with your fucking misogyny walking and I see a black woman who has been the most
the bonnet and the thing in her nose let you know she don't know what the hell she talking about. That's why she on these people internet hollering and cussing like this. All wrong, loud and wrong.
Qualified person to run for the office, be president. You couldn't see that shit. You wanted to play on her race instead of playing on her policy. You dumbass. You it up for us. It's black men like you that need to sit the in the background and shut the up. Stop speaking. You are not a leader. Close your mouth and sit in the back row. Welcome.
It's funny she ended the video like that. She should take her own advice. It's funny she ended the video like that. Take her own advice. And here comes J. Anthony Brown.
Come to the party, Killer Mike. Ain't you the same Negro that says just because you black, that don't guarantee your vote?
Yes.
Kind of late for this bullshit.
I'm telling you, those days are over. So many entertainers and famous people and athletes, actors, rappers, whatever. People sick of y'all. So, Michael Santiago Render.
This is pointless.
Nope. Nobody want to hear from you.
And see, that's why I came with information and facts rather than feelings. That's why I started off saying facts over feelings. All of these are emotional outbursts, right? The Democrats have even failed to pass stronger voting protections when they had the power, right? So there were proposed federal voting rights legislation for the people. It was called the For the People Act, which Democrats supported but could not pass through the Senate, right? The critics of Democratic leadership argue, and hold on, let me look at this For the People Act a little closer. For the People Act was a comprehensive voting rights and election reform bill introduced in the United States Congress, first designated H.R. 1 in the House and S1 in the Senate during the 11th Congress in 21 and 22. It sought expanded voter access, limit money in politics, and strengthen ethics rule for public officials. It was introduced in January 4th, 2021. The primary sponsor was Representative John Sarbanes. The Senate companion was sponsored by Jeff Merkley. The House passage was March 31st of 2021. Senate outcome blocked by filibuster in June of 2021. The bill was reintroduced from a prior version passed by the House in 2019, but stalled in the Senate. It represented a key legislative priority for congressional Democrats following the 2020 elections and was intended as a sweeping response to concerns about voting access and government transparency. Major provisions for the For the People Act proposed to mandate nationwide automatic and same-day voter registration. So this couldn't get passed. And it was blocked in 2021. And let's see. Let me check my facts. Who controlled the Senate in 2021? So I can make sure the Democrats controlled the Senate in 2021. Well, now this is saying January 3rd. Well, not January 3rd through the 20th of 2021, Republicans held the majority with Mitch McConnell as majority leader. January 20th, 2021 through 2023. So at the time, that makes sense. All right. So that's what I thought. So at the time, the Democrats did not have control of the Senate. The Republicans had control of the Senate. So that's why it was blocked. So let's move forward.
As far as a response from Mike, on Monday, he would begin to respond to Hughley and others' claims. Over on his IG story, he would first share a photo of him fake crying at a well-known local strip club with the caption, I cried away the pain in at Blue Flame Lounge. While another IG story post would show a response he would give someone for calling him a sellout. Now, over on X, Mike would fire back with several different responses to defend himself against people's claims. While responding to a user for calling him out about meeting with Kemp, he would go on to say, the governor race was in 2018. I supported Abrams. My meeting with Governor Kemp.
And see, Killer Mike's responses are not good responses. All you have to do is kill people with facts, like real political facts and real political information. Like people are ignorant. They're going to be mad at you because the internet told them to be mad at you. Or D.L. Hughley is somebody, their followers. But this is not a good look.
About jobs, trades, and more was 2020. You are an incredible liar and F nigga too. Stop lying, F nigga. Now, in response to that same user, Mike would send off another message to highlight that he has supported black candidates in the past. Blacks I Help campaign and or win. Kasim Reed, Keisha Lambs Bottoms, Raphael Warner, Senator John Ossoff, white but good for Georgia, Miss Abrams Sue. To not like Mike is okay, to be a liar is not. Peace out, liar face ass. Now, despite issuing this response to challenge claims, some of his previous interviews continue to surface online, showing that he may have been adding to the divide, which can be seen as helping Trump win previous elections.
Why didn't you support Hillary Clinton?
I just didn't believe in that leadership. I don't believe in the
That's
current
his
leadership.
right.
So just your party needs to give me a better version of what you want to see. I didn't vote for Trump. But, did we go to war under him?
No.
Was the economy better? What were the interest rates on the house when he was president?
Oh, the interest rates.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Why didn't you vote Hillary? Because I voted Bernie.
Well, yeah, but it got.
And he has been consistent in his support of Bernie Sanders. He's been consistent in his voting of Bernie Sanders. I disagree with all that, but he's been consistent with that. People are lying on this man, and they're ignorant about what's happening, really.
Got to a point where it was either going to be Hillary or Trump.
It gets to a point where I get the fine stripper or the fat stripper. If the fat stripper can't dance, I don't want the fat one.
Let's talk about it more in the comments below. Do you agree with Hughley and others that think some of Killer Mike's previous comments?
So that is that, right? So critics of the Democratic leadership, they also argue that the Democrats knew the court was hostile. The Democrats knew that the Republicans was hostile to voting rights protections. They still failed to secure doable legislative protections. and the internal party divisions weakened reform efforts. And we got to remember that this Supreme Court issue, the what just happened, Louisiana versus Calais, this is bigger than Kamala Harris. This is bigger than this past election. This is strategic failure of the Democrats over a 40-plus year period. The Supreme Court, remember, is the consequence of decades of elections, Senate confirmations, legal strategy, and political organization. 40-plus years. Once again, the Supreme Court is the consequence of decades of elections, Senate confirmations, legal strategy, and political organization. It is not based off of the opinions of a celebrity, one election, one candidate, or one viral moment. We're talking about a culmination. This is over time. We're talking about one party putting in work and one party not putting in work. Because we got a lot of black people who are furious. They're furious at Killer Mike. They believe his criticism of Kamala Harris helped pave the way for the Supreme Court decision gutting parts of the Voting Rights Act. But let's be intellectually honest and ask ourselves, is that actually true? Or are people's heads so far up the Democratic crack that they are choosing to ignore decades of Democratic political failures? The conservative legal movement treated the courts like a long-term war. Democrats, the Democrats, they treated the elections in the courts like short-term campaigns. Republicans playing the long game, Democrats playing the short game. And now we got black voters who are now debating whether political independence strengthens black political power or weakens it inside a two-party system. I will always choose political independence. We should always bet on ourselves. We got to remember too, going back and looking in history, and that's why we looked at a bit of the Shelby County versus Holder case, right? Because remember, cases like Shelby County versus Holder, and either other cases that you can look up, like Giles versus Harris, they show a long historical struggle over federal protection of black voting rights. The CBC should have been working harder. Over the past 40 years, the CBC should have been working harder. Right? So these are questions I have for you all. Can black voters afford political fragmentation in the two-party system? We're only 13% of the population, and all of us don't vote. Right? So can black voters afford political fragmentation in the two-party system? And that doesn't mean we have to go all in on Democrat, all in on Republican, or even all in on third party. We should be going all in on ourselves. The second question, is voting harm reduction or ideological purity? Is voting actually harm reduction, or is it ideological purity? Third question, did the Democrats rely too heavily on identity politics instead of institutional power? Did the Democrats rely too heavily on identity politics instead of institutional power? The next question, and I think we know the answer to this, have black voters become too emotionally attached to political parties? I was watching the Black News Diaspora channel, Philip Scott. I know I said it wrong, but Philip Scott. And one point he made that I agreed with. He said, if the Republicans right now gave black people cash payouts, reparations like cash payouts, the majority of black people will start voting Republican. Emotional attachments. Next question. Did the Democrats fail to protect voting rights when they had the opportunities? I think we know the answer to that. The next question. Is the Supreme Court now more powerful than elected officials? The last question is, what should black political strategy look like going forward? And that's a question I asked on our live. I ask it again. What should black political strategy look like moving forward? Let's remember, man. Let's be intellectual. Let's act like we know how to read and research. The Voting Rights Act decision was produced by decades of judicial strategy, electoral outcomes, and institutional failures. The current anger towards Killer Mike reflects a larger debate inside Black America about political loyalty, political independence, political ignorance, and the real consequences of elections. Now let's put your critical thinking cap on and make sure we're making the right decisions, not out here just reacting because we feel some type of way. Because we're more intelligent than that. Y'all have a great Friday. Please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and share.